Another mass shooting this week, this time at a school in Texas, killing 2 teachers and 19 children. But rather than taking even one moment to reflect on this especially horrific event, to grieve the senseless loss of life and wait for more information to come in, pundits and politicians on both sides of the aisle reduce these lives to an opportunity for more political posturing.
Wait a little bit of time, not just so that the emotions can be processed, but so that just basic facts are known about who this person is, what motivated them, what role guns had in terms of gun control laws, or anything else you want to talk about. They don't wait at all because they want to exploit those emotions that they could be using to unite people to instead work them to their own advantage. It's so ghoulish and grotesque to watch.
Corrections have been made all week, but more questions still remain. Wall Street Journal. Uvalde shooter fired outside school for 12 minutes before entering. Parents begged and screamed for officers to do something while officers just stood outside. Why? Uvalde parents reportedly arrested, tased while trying to save kids. Law enforcement reportedly waited 40 to 60 minutes before going into the school and fatally shooting the gunman. A top Texas law enforcement official now says officers waiting to go in was the wrong decision. Wall Street Journal reports the shooter climbed a fence onto school grounds and began firing before walking inside unimpeded. But then it skips ahead to police arriving 4 minutes later and the murderer already barricaded in a classroom. So how exactly was he able to get in? Seems pretty important to examine the security breakdown rather than dive into the gun control debate yet again. As the Federalist points out, 10 years ago, the deadly massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary proved the need for armed security protecting K-12 classrooms. Instead of funding these efforts, we've sent $54 billion to Ukraine. By Wednesday, Senator Ron Johnson asked for the Luke and Alex School Safety Act to be passed by unanimous consent. Among other things, the bill would have charged the Department of Homeland Security with establishing standards for best practices in the area of school safety. The post-millennial Chuck Schumer blocks school safety bill, says gun legislation is the answer. Is it? Andrew Follett of Club for Growth lays out data showing quite the opposite. The highest murder rate of any jurisdiction in the U.S. is Washington, D.C., which has a murder rate more than 20 times that of most European countries. But D.C. also has the most restrictive gun laws in the country and the lowest rates of legal gun ownership. Baltimore is the 11th most violent city in the world and has very strict gun laws. Chicago, New York, the list goes on and on. If more legislation worked, then why doesn't it work? Follett also shared what you're not hearing from mass media. The U.S. makes up about 1% of the world's mass shootings, while having almost 5% of the world's population. Out of 97 countries with data, the U.S. is 64th in frequency of mass shootings and 65th in murder rate. More have died in mass shootings per capita in countries with much stricter gun laws. That being said, should we cheer on a clearly mentally disturbed 18-year-old having an AR-15? No, absolutely not. But as said in the beginning, there are still many questions that need to be answered. We should demand that, and that already existing laws be enforced, not jump to demonization and lies about the Second Amendment, like this one.
Second Amendment's not absolute. When it was passed, you couldn't own a cannon. You couldn't own certain kinds of weapons.
As even the Washington Post observes, this is an outright lie President Biden keeps repeating. Matt Walsh. Biden had a chance to unite the country in our mourning of the lost innocent children, but instead he rambled about the gun lobby, attacked Republicans, and wandered off the stage. Beto O'Rourke pulled this politically motivated show on Wednesday.
And an embarrassment.
Sit down and don't play this stuff.
The next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
Disrespecting grieving families to promote his campaign. BizPac Review reports the father of a teenager who died in the 2018 Parkland, Florida school shooting says state governments haven't learned anything from previous mass shootings and insists focusing on just gun control is to blame for the most recent massacre at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. The father is calling for armed guards at every school, one point of entry into schools, and an improved system to deal with the level of mental illness many of the school shooters appear to share. After all, it was an armed Border Patrol agent that was able to stop the murderer. Meanwhile, globalists meet at the World Economic Forum to plot shutting down any opportunity to have these kinds of conversations. Rumors, falsehoods, division, and hate speech should be suppressed by social media algorithms, according to a Freedom of the Press panel at the World Economic Forum in Davos on Thursday. Oh, but who gets to arbitrarily define these terms and program the algorithms? No, not the free press, but the global elites themselves. Kind of like when the disgraced disinformation czar suggested that blue checks, like herself, should be able to edit your tweets, your speech.
I think we're going to have to think about a recalibration of a whole range of human rights that are playing out online, from freedom of speech to the freedom to, to be free from online violence.
A recalibration of human rights? It's not about accuracy or safety. It's about the need to control, their need for power.
The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the state of the world.
And they want to monitor what you buy, what you eat, and where and how you travel.
What does that mean? Where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So,
speaking of efforts to monitor and control, MSM continues to ignore amendments to a WHO treaty with the potential to strip more freedoms away. Epoch Times. Under the proposed amendments, WHO would be empowered to declare a public health emergency in any country, regardless of whether officials in the country concur with the declaration. If a country refuses, a proposed amendment could give the WHO the ability to sanction that country. Not only is the Biden administration allowing this shift in power to the WHO, but it's also helping advance it. And in convenient timing, WHO is responding to a string of monkeypox outbreaks and will be convening an emergency meeting on the virus and its global spread. Back to the attack on free speech and Elon Musk's plan to support the First Amendment ideal, it's now revealed the attack on Musk is heavily funded. A dozen liberal groups that pressured Twitter advertisers to boycott the platform in response to Elon Musk's plans to acquire it received money from entities backed by Bill Gates and George Soros, an analysis of public filings shows. Bringing you what's ignored, sensationalized, unbalanced, misleading, or just plain false, as well as the growing attacks on our First and Second Amendment rights. That's your media malfeasance for the final week of May.